Hi, Seth.
What's up, Gretchen?
Hi, Seth's community, who this video is going out to. I am so grateful for who you are in the world, Seth, the work that you do, and also the collaborative spirit that you bring to this work. And I want to share some things with your community. But first, I want to name, I don't know if you remember this, but I was introduced to you because somebody who became a client, a kid with ADHD who became a client, her dad saw a video of yours and they signed up for my work because you mentioned me in that video and you didn't know who I was. So you said, like, yeah, there's some woman named Gretchen Wegner who has something called the anti-boring approach. I don't know her, but she's an example of a coach you could reach out to.
Yeah, and I don't do shout outs very often, so that's it means I really like what you do. But I do, we've gotten to know each other since then very well. And we are kindred spirits.
We
We
absolutely
are in this world to serve kids and
are.
try to help a little bit.
Yeah, to serve kids by serving their parents and serving teachers as well.
Hmm.
So yeah, it turned out I saw that video and I reached out to you. I was like, hey, it's me.
Yeah,
And then here we go.
and Gretchen just does a fantastic job. She has this habit of holding up a little whiteboard and explaining things like jamming it in her chin, and it's
Like
like,
this.
yeah, and it makes these cool little drawings and really explains things really well, and just have great ways of making things digestible.
Well, thank you so much. And I'm so honored that you also have included me a couple years in a row now as the study skills expert in your group coaching program for students and parents.
Because it's a really challenging area to really do justice to for outside the box kids. I feel like a lot of the tips out there are great for kids who are sort of more conventional learners, or where there's not as much resistance, but for these kids you have really good ways of approaching it. Yeah.
Well, and I would even actually add that even the more neurotypical learners, they still need to be thinking out of the box more in order to truly harness their
Hmm.
creativity and not bore their brains. My approach is called the anti-boring approach. So it's good for everyone. But yes, I have a special spot in my heart for the kiddos that you and I both serve who have some extra layers of challenges they have to work
Yeah.
with in their learning and in their being in the world. So I really appreciate your willingness to integrate me into your work. And I am excited to integrate you a bit more into your work. And actually, I forgot to say this before we hit record, but I have a couple programs coming up, and I am hoping that in my Rock Your Biz program, which supports parents and educators in starting their own private coaching practices, that you may come in sometime this year as a guest expert and just answer questions for folks about business building and executive function
Hmm.
and whatever else. So
One of my
are you
other
willing to
favorite
do that this
things.
year?
Hmm.
Thank
Yep.
you. So yeah, I have those two programs. Rock Your Coaching is a program designed for parents who have to coach their kids and educators who either teach or coach. And I teach them all of the study skills that you have invited me in to teach in your programs. And I wanted the folks who follow you to know about that in case that's a skill set that they want to work on this summer. So that's coming up. And also then the Rock Your Biz program for those who want to take the extra leap. Actually, several folks who introduced to me through your executive function online summit have actually, all parents have actually started their own businesses now as a result of coming into my world. So I'm grateful to you for that
Yeah, I
as
mean,
well.
we really need people who have really unique skill sets to serve kids and families. And there's I think a lot of limiting beliefs, and there certainly was for me around like, can I do this? Who am I to do this? What's it called? The imposter syndrome, and I don't have the background to do this. I don't have the business background, or the this or the that. All these limiting beliefs, and the fact is that to me, if it matters to you, if it's in your heart, and you're willing to take some real time. I mean, this is stuff is not easy, and you have a heart of service, then you can build something.
Absolutely. And so many people who come to me are people who have already lived these vibrant lives, whether it's a career in education or whether you're a parent of a neuroatypical kid. And so you've had to learn all these tools anyway to support your kid and now want to pass it forward now that your kid's flown the coop, thank goodness, and you have some extra time on your hands. Or there are hosts of other people who do a beautiful job starting their business. And I really noticed that so many of us who have a heart of service, I love that phrase that you've said, do undercut ourselves.
Mm.
Like we don't really,
Myself included. Yep.
do you experience that?
Oh yeah. Not so much anymore, but you know, I was talking to somebody recently, but about like confidence. Like you don't get confident and then do something. You do something and then get confidence around it. So like I feel confident because I've done it so long. But when I started, you know, I was a teacher for 12 years and I felt like I don't have anything to fall back on. And but I did it anyway. And once I started doing it, I would have people reach out to me and say, Seth, can you do this? Like an example would be like, can you support us and go to the school and sit in and advocate with us in an IEP meeting? I was like, of course, I've sat in on hundreds of IEP meetings. Of course I can. Like, I had no idea how many valuable skills I had as a teacher, and parents as well. And like, you do so many things that you actually have built skills around, just nobody's necessarily noticed or given, like, you know, there's so many things that I did as a teacher that I even took for granted. Like you're just doing it, you know, but you're building these amazing skill sets.
It's one of the reasons why I've structured my Rock Your Biz training program so that people start their businesses first and then they decide what additional training they may or may not
Mm-hmm.
need. So many people think, well, I got to go to life coach training, or I got to go to ADHD training, or I got to
Yep.
take an executive function
I
course. And
almost went back to business school or school for counseling or this. I'm so glad I didn't. But what happens is, if I may be so bold as to interrupt you, is that
geez,
you start leaping. You know, you remember in Indiana Jones when that one of them went where there's like this big crevasse and it's like filled with lava or something, and he has to like, I think Sean Penn was his, not Sean Penn, Sean Connery I think was his father in this one. He has to like cross this thing, get like the goblet, and come back and save his dad or something. And there's no bridge, and he has to like walk out. I think it's like the leap of faith scene or whatever they call it. But he and the bridge comes up to meet him, and I think that that's, you know, that's definitely my story. Is like I would take a step, try something, and then it would come up to me. Not that everything worked, because lots of things fail for you and I both. But you know, you do the thing, and what happens is when you start taking those steps and start trying things and trying to serve that, and which is the perspective I go from. How can I serve? What's fun for me to serve? What matters? What happens is that the world or the universe or the people or the families respond and tell you what your business needs to become or what services you need to offer. It's quite counterintuitive because we want to get all our ducks in a row first. And if you
no.
do get all your ducks in a row, I guarantee they're going to change, you know.
And especially in this work of students with executive function challenges and learning differences, we really need to challenge the dominant system, whether that's the dominant school system, whether it's the dominant belief systems that we've inherited, whether it's the dominant, I mean, there are so many things that are needed to challenge right now. And one of the ways we start with that is noticing how those old stories that tell us we're not good enough or we can't take the leap, how those are alive in us right now.
Mm-hmm.
And actually recognize that we may know enough. We probably do know enough. And kids are so desperate for a kind, loving heart to support them right now, right now. And you can get more skills as you go. But right now, they
Mm-hmm.
need you and you are good enough. So I want to just invite anybody who even is playing around with the idea of, might I turn this into a business, to, there are some links below. I have a year-long training program. We're bringing in a cohort right now. There are some discounts available right now. But even if now's not the time for you, check out my material, try and get on my list. There are some links below to allow you to, so that you can start thinking about, what is it that I could create and how can I bring my genius to the forefront to help students? And you can do that as a building your business, or you can do that as an educator to bring a new toolkit into the classroom or into the coaching that you've already started doing to help students specifically with their study skills. So just click the link below. I was going to ask you for a tip for folks, but I think you've given it already.
No, I have one that I wanted to cover.
Okay.
So, when you were just talking, for example, about the limiting beliefs, I can't do this because, that's like a great example of something you can use and what I'm about to tell you with a tip. But one of my biggest tips is so when I started, I did a big vision board, which I don't have anymore, but I have a photo of, and it's amazing how that stuff came alive over the years. And I did a vision journal. So I want to encourage you to get a vision journal. Grab a cheap 50-cent notebook, and you can get a fancy one later or whatever. It doesn't matter. Just grab a fresh notebook and make that your vision journal. I still have mine to this day. And every time you get an idea, make a new page and write about it. So for example, on this one, you have a limiting belief. I can't do it because, like, write that out, make that the heading, and then write out why you can't, and then write the opposite. Like, if you pretend like it was the opposite, when you think about like your ideal like client, the person, like an amazing client experience, like what would it be like if you just had like people who you're really serving and it was so aligned? Like, write them out, write out what that would be like, all of these things, like what you envision, like really jot them all down. And because what happened with me with that vision journal is that those things have manifested, and those things have become reality. And it was very heart centered and very authentic. That's how I like to do things, and so that's what I would write. And then it really helped me to sort of be intentional and focused in how I built something that is really heart centered and that matters to me, and that I feel very fortunate to do.
I love that. Yes, go get that notebook. Start writing now. I
It's not that
actually
complicated.
follow that advice
Yeah.
because I'm making some changes in my own world. I'm getting ready to go on sabbatical a year from now. And so it's another reason to dive in now if you've been thinking about working with me anyways. You'll have more of me this year than you'll get next year. So now, I know that you are starting to announce your new TEFOS,
Oh.
the Executive Function Online Summit. Will you just say a quick word about what is different and new and exciting this year?
Yeah. So we have TEFOS, the Executive Function Online Summit for parents, but a lot of teachers and therapists come, and it is coming up in August before the school year starts. And what I'm doing differently this year is I'm just really trying to create it instead of sort of longer interviews. What I found people wanted is shorter, more intensive learning experiences. So I'm calling the interviews learning labs. So it's like a lab where you can go learn and try things. And I'm having my experts teach really 3 things to know and 3 things to do to support kids with executive function challenges. Get real nitty gritty into the strategies and actions that people can take. And I'm doing 30 speakers. So I'm doing this theme of threes, 3 days, 30 speakers, 10 a day, and 30 minutes each, so that people can really contemplate, okay, I can dive into 10 of these on this day, and this day, really immerse yourself in the weekend and come out at the end of the weekend with your head spinning. But as the mud settles out, which it happens every year anyway with TEFOS, but this time with this sort of format, as the mud starts to settle out, being like having more clarity about how to support your kiddo and yourself.
Well, and having just heard that, I want to tell you what just popped to my
What
mind.
popped?
What popped, and folks at home who are planning on coming to TEFOS, you can do this, but Seth, you might actually create a worksheet based on this. Now that we know the structure of the learning, we can actually create a lovely note-taking graph beforehand.
I
And it
made
can be,
one, a workbook, and I should have you look at it.
yeah, I would be happy to look at it. And I'm guessing it's not what I'm about to say, because I'm guessing your workbook was a page per speaker. I
It
recommend a
was.
page per day. And I recommend that people have a page, divide it into 10 different parts, cut it in columns. The 3 takeaways, or the 3 things to know and the 3 things to do, how short can you write them so you can see each
Mm.
day on each page. There's a lot of brain theory that I could explain, but we're not going to right now. You just have to take my courses to explain why that would be such a good note-taking technique. And maybe I could do even a video for the TEFOS people explaining at the top of the call why I recommend taking notes this way and what they
I
can
might
do.
have to totally
So.
restructure the workbook. So, all right, everybody. Well, thank you.
Yes,
Thanks,
thank you. And
Gretchen.
all the links are below that you'll need, including a link to TEFOS and a link to my stuff if you're interested in joining our program. And I'm just really grateful for collaborating with you, Seth.
You too, Gretchen. Take care, everybody.